Hello guys, today we are going to be talking about simplifying or reducing fractions. So with fractions, there are obviously two parts, the numerator and the denominator. You guys have done that really well last week, adding and subtracting with like denominators. Now, simplifying and reducing, whenever you have fractions, you should leave the fraction in what they call the simplest form, or simplifying it, or some call it reducing it. What that means is you're going to see that some fractions are equivalent or equal to other things or other fractions. So what we have to do to simplify or to leave a fraction in its lowest amount is we have to learn how to reduce. And this comes in play with division. Fractions is all about division. Now, some fractions cannot be simplified and reduced. Others can be. So for example, to see if something can be reduced, let's look at 5/20ths. So we need to find out or look and see what can go into both 5 and 20. Like what factors can both go into 5 and 20. One easy thing is when it is an odd number, 3, 5, 7, 9, so on and so forth. Usually we just look at that number to see if it can go into the denominator. So for example, I know that 5 can go into 5 and 5 can go into 20. So one thing that I always tell students, the easiest thing to do is to kind of put to the side, divided by 5, divided by 5. Okay, now I know that 5 goes into 5 one time, and I know 5 goes into 20 4 times. So 5/20ths is reduced to 1/4. That's the same thing, because if I do 5 times 1, it gives me 5, and if I do 5 times 4, it gives me 20. Now moving on to 6/18ths. Well, I know that 2, both of these are even numbers. 2 can go into both 6 and 18. So I'm going to put a 2 by its side. Now 2 goes into 6 3 times, and 2 goes into 18 9 times, 3 9s. But wait a second. I believe it can be reduced again, because if you look, something can go into both 3 and 9. I can divide it by 3 and 3, and that would give you 3 goes into 3 1 time, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. So my final reduced answer is 1/3. Now, some of you are thinking, well, what I could have done is that 3 goes into both 6 and 18. You are correct. 3 goes into 6 and 3 goes into 18. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 3 goes into 18 6 times. You get 2 6, but then wait a minute. Something can go into both 2 and 6. 2 can go into 2 and 2 can go into 6. That would give me 1/3 again. Now, if you wait a minute again, you think, oh, but 6 can go into 6 and 6 can go into 18. 6 goes into 6 1 time. 6 goes into 18 3 times. We get 1/3. Now those were 3 different ways to get to 1/3. 1/3 is the simplest form. So sometimes if you divide it by 2 or you divide it by 3, sometimes you have to go an extra step. What you want to do is go to the greatest common factor, the greatest number that both the numerator and the denominator have in common. Okay, so 1/3 is the final simplest form. It cannot be reduced anymore. Let's look at the third one, 2 and 20. Well, this one's pretty easy because you know that 2 can only go into 2. So I always put what I'm dividing by to the side. 2 goes into 2 1 time. 2 goes into 20 10 times. When you get to 1 as the numerator, it cannot be reduced anymore. Always get in the habit of then making a square or circling your final answer. Let's look at this one. 9 over 27. Many of you are going to do 3. That is not incorrect. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 27 9 times. But if you look there, here it's the same as this one. 3 goes into 3 and 3 goes into 9. 1/3. The simplest form right there would be 1/3. You just had to do an extra step. But if you know your multiplication very well, you would know that 9 goes into both 9 and 27. 9 goes into 9 1 time. 9 goes into 27 3 times. 1/3, my final answer. Okay, now let's look at this one. 16/17. You know there are many factors of 16, but nothing goes into 17. So if you got this as one of your answers, you would just leave it as 16/17. Nothing can go into 17. You just leave it like that. As I said, not all fractions can be reduced. Here again, we have 5/26. The only thing that can go into 5 is 5 itself, but 5 does not go into 26, okay? They don't have it in common. So you would just leave 5/26 as it is. You don't have to simplify that. So many of you, if you look back on your worksheet that you did last week, some of you did, 2/10 plus 4/10, okay, something like that. And you put 6/10, okay? That is correct. It is 6/10. But now going a step further, you know that this one can be simplified or reduced because by looking at it, you know that 2 goes into 6 and 2 goes into 5, which this can be reduced to 3/5. The final answer is 3/5. Now 6/10 is not wrong, okay? But fractions should always be left in simplest form. Okay, so if you were on a test, I would give you 1 point here, and if you just left it as 6/10, you would get 1 point, but I would take 1 point off for not putting it in simplest form. And let's do another one. We get 3/15 plus 2/15. Okay, you know, as you did last week, you would get 5/15. That is not wrong. But if you look at 5/15, that can be reduced. 5 goes into 5. 5 goes into 15. Your final answer should be reduced form as 1/3. Okay? And lastly, if I do 3/9 plus 1/9, you get 4/9. Now, looking at that, nothing can go into both 4 and 9. 4 cannot go into 9, and 2 cannot go into 9. Okay, so you would just leave it as 4/9. That is one of those ones where it cannot be reduced. Hopefully this helped you out. You have to know your division with your multiplication, your denominators. Hope this helps, and good luck this week.